of New York News, the force behind the landmark New York State Climate Act. He is also a convener of Rivers and Mountains and one of climate activists in the Upper Hudson Valley of New York State in coalition with Stop the Money Pipeline, Third Act, and Green Faith.
Michael is a longtime activist from war resistance and social justice movements beginning in the 1970s to today as a planner and organizer of climate and environmental actions. Michael is an advocate for regenerative agriculture. In 2012, he co-founded and directed an agroecology training and demonstration center in Nicaragua for small-scale growers. From a varied cache of experiences, including organic farmer, solar heating contractor, labor economist, county legislator, and Buddhist practitioner, Michael is committed to bringing attention to the moral imperative to stop funding climate crisis. All right.
Thank you, Kathy.
It seems to be a little bit of feedback.
The feedback's probably coming off the.
We've got an unmuted device over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably this one. That's not muted, but will it, I'm sorry. I don't know.
I was going to start this presentation by talking about systemic problems. And somewhere in this, there's a systemic problem. But on that point,
Yeah, he's on Zoom too.
often when we talk about the climate crisis, the climate disruption, however you want to reference what we're going through, we talk about the problems and the solutions, but we really don't look deep enough to where there is a systemic problem. And the way we go after systemic problems is with very complex campaigns where we go at this source. And what is the source of the climate crisis? Yeah, you're on it. You're on it. It's our consumerism that's based on an economy that is fueled by fossil fuels. Our entire existence right now is based on fossil fuels. Last Sunday, I did a presentation with Judith Enck and Beyond Plastics. It was called Plastic Pollution and Climate Change. And we talked about the systemic problem there. For example, recycling we must do, especially number ones and number twos. You understand that the rest of it, we've been duped into believing that we're actually recycling when fewer than 6% of it is being recycled. So we're told that the problem and the solution is to recycle. No. The solution is to go after the politicians to get legislation to change the way that our consumer goods are packaged and distributed, and to go after the financiers and the producers. And when I mean producers, those people that are extracting, refining, and distributing fossil fuels. Still picking up an echo. Is that coming through?
Yeah, it's not as bad as it was.
Is this computer muted?
It can't be because then oh yeah.
You see, this is picking up. So the mute button on this Mac.
It's on the top row, towards the right.
Oh, Macs are so different. Okay, so that one. Okay, so that mute is off, and this
Okay.
one.
Yeah, we're not hearing the echo now. I don't think so. So back to where we are, because I'm still hearing the echo over here. I apologize. What we want to try to deal with today, to get into this workshop, because we are running short on time, is what we can do as consumers to address this in a systemic way. Now, part of this is going to be that we have to still deal with our legislators on getting them to stop funding the climate change through funding the fossil fuel industries. But one of the most effective ways to get at the climate change is through stopping the money pipeline. And if we look at it, you and I as individuals, changing who we bank with, where we use our credit cards, where we get our home and auto insurance, and how we have our portfolios invested for retirement. If we look at that, you might say, oh, come on, that's not going to move the needle even a little bit. But there's really two needles here. There's the needle of the finances, but there's also the needle of the moral consequence of us not taking responsibility. I think all of us would agree that we have a moral obligation to stop climate destruction. And if we start dealing with that in our own consumerism, it starts to have an echo effect in how we go about the rest of our life. Do we get involved with calling the legislature? Do we get involved with putting pressure on the big box stores to stop doing business with the big banks and the like? So this workshop was designed to show people how they can go about divesting their own personal finances. Now, we also apply this to institutions, to churches. I know I did this workshop for the 4th U a couple of years ago. And after the workshop, some months later, they recognized that they were still using Citibank and had a credit card. And when they woke up to that, they quickly ran down to make a change in who they were banking with. So what we've done is we put together this workshop, and this is for you to go home and do the work. We're not going to be talking about what the problem is. We're not going to be solving your problems. We're going to show you that there are alternatives and how you can access those alternatives. So what you do is you go to this website, you can see up here in the browser, it's rivers-mountains-greenfaith.org. And we can get that to you later, but rivers-mountains-greenfaith.org. And that takes you to our website. And of course, you can take some time here to explore what we're all about. We're in coalition with Green Faith, Stop the Money Pipeline, and Third Act. All of our activities are directed at climate finance. So we take on demonstrations and education around the big banks and what they're doing with our money. And we also put quite a bit of effort into legislation to move our finances away from fossil fuels at the pension level and the endowment level. But you want to come over here and click on individual divestment. And that's going to take you to this landing page. And you can scroll down here and see the Move Your Money office hours. This is a 30-minute session that you can book online with a peer facilitator. There are 3 facilitators that are part of Third Act San Francisco, and then there's me as part of Third Act Upstate New York. We're the 4 facilitators right now, and we're training and growing this project out. But this allows you to call up after the workshop, or you're at home and you're having some problems, and you can say, listen, I'm having problems with my insurance broker. I'm getting this story from him. I don't know if it's true or not. What do you think? This is, let's just call it hand-holding to help you make your transition. But here's the workshop. Align your money with your values. And in the future, if you want to scroll down and just see what the workshop calendar looks like, you can scroll down and see what other workshops are coming up. Get in touch with me and you can access another workshop. But let's get into this quickly with a little bit of time that we have. Align your money with your values. And if you read this here, it says that this workshop is going to show you how to move finances from funding fossil fuel extraction, production, and distribution. This is what caught me right off. What do you mean, move my finances from fossil? I never recall going out and investing in fossil fuels. Well, go to workshop. Here we're going to quickly go through personal banking, credit cards, home and auto insurance, and retirement investments. Now, a bit of a footnote here. This is a 90-minute workshop that we're going to condense down into 45 minutes. So I'm going to quickly go through some aspects that I would normally spend more time helping you actually see how it's used. But let's start off by what I was saying. I don't remember actually investing in what's going on. The story is that Mr. Peabody came to me one day. Mr. Peabody owns a coal company, and he says, Michael, I have this mountain down in West Virginia that I want to take the top off of. Loan me some money. I don't want to use my working capital. I got to use that for other things. Like I want to go buy up some other companies. So I want to borrow your money to take off this mountaintop. I say, Mr. Peabody, I don't think so. This doesn't really align with my values. Nah, I'm not going to do that. Mr. Peabody's a nice guy. He says, good day, walks down the street, goes to my bank. Walks in and sees the bank manager. He says, hey, I got this mountaintop down in West Virginia I want to take the top off of and get to some coal. Loan me some of Michael's money. And he does. Now that's the story, but that's how it works. When we have our bank accounts, what do? We go in and we say, Mr. Banker, I want to have you take my money and make it convenient and secure. We make it convenient, they give us checks and little debit cards. They make it secure, they give us good branch hours. We can even bank online. There's no other conditions, are there? I don't sit down there and say, you cannot loan my money to Mr. Peabody. I only want you to loan my money out to nice people that are doing nice things. You know, we don't sign that type of contract. Now, later on when we talk about retirement investments, we have a contract. We say exactly where that money's going and who it's going to, but not with our banking. Now, some of you may only have a few $100s in the bank that you use for convenience. Some of you may have quite a bit in there, some money market accounts and whatnot like that, or even some CDs. They can use that money as they wish within certain limits. They can't be laundering money out to drug cartels. But so back to the point here. If you bank with one of these major Wall Street banks, Chase, Citi, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, TD Bank, a disproportion of that money is being loaned to Mr. Peabody. Oh, it's Exxon, it's Chevron, it's the others. They're also loaning money out to hospitals and good projects and homes and the like that, but a disproportionate is being loaned out. Now here's what's going on. Wall Street banks exist for the purposes of providing complex financial services to Wall Street companies, right? That's why they're there. I don't need them. I need a small community bank that can provide me with those conveniences that I need, the convenient access to my money in a secure fashion. So we're going to be talking about the Wall Street banks, and we're going to be talking about their alternatives. And their alternatives are really this. The community bank, that's a term, community bank, and credit unions. Basically the same thing, except for they're structured differently. So under community banks, we have the large regional community bank, and we have the small local community bank. Both of them are community banks. Now that word community means they're investing in the community. And credit unions by their very existence are doing that. So Wall Street banks for Wall Street, community banks for community. Pretty simple, huh? So if you want to move your money from doing harm, paying for Mr. Peabody's coal company, to doing no harm, it's real easy. Just leave them. Just go away from the Wall Street banks. There, you did it. But what if you want to do good? You want to see your money going for low-income housing, small farms, community public works projects, and the like. Well, it's not so easy just to look up in the yellow pages community banks that do all these good things. But we do have a tool that's useful to us. Here on this website, with the personal banking, first of all, you can read all about the harm that's going on Green America by clicking this Read All About It, or by going to our friends at Stop the Money Pipeline and read all about it. But what we want to do here, battery. What we want to do here is click on Mighty Deposits. Notice there are three buttons here, Mighty Deposit, Bank Green, and Bank for Good. On Mighty Deposits, if you click here, you go to a very basic website. This is a website that's maintained by a women's cooperative. Scroll down and you can see where they get their data. None of it is proprietary. They've just bought this data together and publicized it in a way in which we can access it. Again, very simple website. Find banks, find credit unions. So let's go and find banks. And you'll see here it says, I want a bank located anywhere that is anything. This anything button, what that means is you can look here, it could be investing in low-income communities. Okay, that aligns with my values. Could be small farm lending or above investing in public works. These are all things that align with my values. So I could click these good guy buttons and start to screen out and find what I'm looking for. But let's just leave that at anything right now. And we'll also leave the city that is open. Now let me just show you what I mean by a Wall Street bank. Somebody give me a Wall Street bank to type in here. Let's hit Chase. Yeah, JP Morgan Chase is the same thing. And you see here you have to kind of, it says main bank. Let's look at the main bank. And you go to go. Now the first thing that we see here is this little red button over here. Those other, I call the good guy buttons. This one is the bad guy button. It says top funder of fossil fuels. Now just because you don't see that button, say at Key Bank, doesn't mean that it's not funding fossil fuels. It just means it's not a top funder of fossil fuels. So again, not seeing the button doesn't mean I'm okay. It just means that they're not a top funder. But we know that JP Morgan is a top funder. In fact, this is the second highest of all of them. And we see here that it's $19 out of every 100 that is invested, or deposited, I should say it correctly, is going to the community. I don't expect that number to be too high. It's 49% below the industry average. And the reason I don't expect it to be too high is the Wall Street Bank. It doesn't exist to fund the community. It exists to provide complex financial services to Wall Street companies. So we can click here on this more data. I'm going to skip on that until we go over and look at a good guy bank. So somebody here, give me a good guy bank.
Mid-Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union?
Give me a bank first, because that's another tab.
Ulster Savings?
Ulster Savings.
I'm hoping.
I used to live down here, and I owned a home over in Esopus, and Ulster Savings Bank had my mortgage.
Mine's mine too.
So here we go. And look at this. We don't see a red button, of course, but what we do see is 64 out of every 100 in deposit is going back into the community. And over on the side, I see some good guy buttons there. It's above average is small business lending. I like that. Above average in housing lending, right? And it's above average in financing communities overall. And as you know, the Ulster Bank is a major funder of houses in Hudson Valley. And we also know that it is relatively small. Its footprint is not out too far. Gets out of ways. So we would call this a small, local community bank. Now, our values here are fossil free. Let's add a couple other values that I use. Eat local, shop local, bank local. That's an added value, but I like that value. It aligns with me. So here, Ulster Savings Bank, 64 bucks going back into the community. I can go over here and find out a little bit more about it. And if you scroll down, you'll see it's got a nice little map, so you show a small footprint. It gives us a little bit more on its 200% above industry average on housing, not into large business, but it's really on small. See, I like this bank, right? So this is where you start to find that I'm moving my money from doing harm to no harm. That's easy, I can go anywhere. But what about if I wanted to do good? Well, then I need to go find, through this database, those banks that are doing those good things. You can imagine that in a workshop we could spend a lot of time here looking up Roundout Savings Bank and the like. But on the credit unions, let's go back up here. You see where it says find banks? You have to do find credit unions. And I can't find it. Well, it's because I didn't click the right button. So rather than going through this whole thing again, let's just go right to the source. And you want Hudson Valley or Hudson?
Mid-Hudson.
Mid-Hudson. Yeah. In fact, my daughter who lives in Stone Ridge, who I'm going to have lunch with after this, she uses them. So here's a go. Now, this one has $59 going back into the community. Notice that there it says 3% above industry average. Now, if that was a bank, it would say something like 49% above industry average. The reason is different standards. You expect a credit union to be much more heavily invested in the community than even a small community bank. By definition, that's what they do. There's certain things that they can't loan to, that a bank can loan to, and that keeps them in the community. Now, some of the credit unions are getting so large. The State Employees Federal Credit Union, that's now got a different name, Broadview, they're so large that actually their deposits are greater than what the consumer demand is, and they're starting to loan out more to outside the community, and it's bringing their numbers down. Still a good credit union, fossil-free. All credit unions are fossil-free because they can't invest in that type of industry by their own charter, right? So when you look around for a credit union, I think what you want to find is where are they doing their overall? So here you go. Housing, not so heavy. Households, they're down low. They're loaning a lot out to business. And I think if you went over and you looked at some of the other credit unions around the area, you would see slightly different numbers on how they're doing that. Now, all this is governed by their board of trustees. What's the credit union all about? You are the credit union, right? The depositors own the credit union. So I'm going to move, because of our limited time, into credit cards here. Any questions on banks? I encourage you to use the Mighty Deposits tool, particularly during the winters when the nights are long and the days are cold, and you have some company over. Yeah, get out Mighty Deposits and have lots. It's more fun than a canasta game, huh? So let's go back over to our workshop and scroll down. Now, the story is much the same here with credit cards. That if you have your credit card through Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, any of the Wall Street banks, then your money is going to be finding its way into the money pipeline that is going out and investing, making loans into the fossil fuel industry. So how do I stop my money from going down this karmic trail of destruction? Well, first of all, if I go find myself a small community bank, or even some of the large community banks, or a credit union that issues their own credit card, and I get my credit card from them, problem solved. I have a green bank or credit union, they issue a credit card, the money's not going back into that pipeline. But let's just for a moment take a peek at what that pipeline means. Up here you'll see here money from transaction fees, annual fees, and interest on debt. Now again, let's go back to banks for just a second. How does the money get into the pipeline? Our money gets deposited to the bank. They loan our money out to projects that may not align to our value. So it's a direct pipeline. Here we have an indirect pipeline. Because once we spend our money, once we spend that $100 at the restaurant, that money's gone. It's now somebody else's money. But what happens is the credit card itself takes a certain percentage, and that's called the transaction fee. Also, with some of you may have an annual fee that they collect. Now, maybe it's only $75, but let's say the Citibank has 10 million of those cards out there. Well, that's now $750 million, right? Lots of money, and it's their money. What do they do with their money? Read all about it. They disproportionately use it for fossil fuel projects and other projects, but disproportionately into fossil fuel. We also have the interest on debt. Now, it's been a while, but when I bought my first house, when I was first getting out of college, I had debt on my credit card. And you know, the interest rates are very, very high. In fact, in the United States, again, we're back up to a record number of debt on credit cards. So the banks that are issuing the cards, that are carrying the debt, they're making trillions of dollars on credit card debt. They're making billions of dollars on annual fees. And they're also making billions of dollars on the transaction fee. So, okay, I have a card, I don't pay an annual fee. I don't carry a debt. This is all about the transaction fees. Let's get back to that restaurant with the $100. 3% we're going to use. $97 is going to go to the restaurant owner. 3% is going to go back into the system, the credit card system. I'm going to get 1% as an incentive for using the card, cash back, rewards points, whatever, 1%. That's like, Michael, why do we use credit cards, by the way, instead of just debit cards? The points, right? The difference between a debit card and a credit card, points. So I'm going to get my 1% back, thank you. And then because my card is issued by Citi, they're going to keep the other 2%. Or maybe they got like one of those fancy cards where they're going to give me 2% cash back. Now they're going to keep 1%. So you go, Michael, come on, really. How much do you run through your credit card every year? I run somewhere around $20,000, $30,000 through my credit card because I just run everything through it, right? And so even if I take 1 or 2% of that, am I really causing climate destruction with that kind of money? But again, remember, 1% of a little is a little, 1% of a lot is a lot. If you take all of us, it's trillions of dollars. And so I don't want to see my money going down that money pipeline. How do I stop it? Well, I mentioned the word issuing bank. We have the branding bank and the issuing bank. So if you have a Citi card, what's the brand? Citi. Who issues it? Citi. All right, now I have a bank where my bank doesn't even offer a credit card. I bank at the Bank of Greene County up in Catskill. They don't even offer a card, so I have to go elsewhere. So when I go out there, I can go to Citi and get a Citi card through, or I get one of those affinity cards through American Airlines or Chase with one of the hotels and stuff like that. And so the card is going to be branded by either a bank or an airline club or a hotel club, but it's going to be issued by who? Chase or Citi. So I want to go find a card that is going to be branded and or issued by somebody other than the fossil fuel companies. So in my particular case, what I did is I go down here and I go to Amalgamated Bank. An Amalgamated Bank is a regional bank that's based in New York City that it was founded by labor unions a long time ago. They're considered to be a very green bank. They're B Corp certified. And they have a 1.5% cashback card. So in that instance, when I use their credit card, I get 1.5% back incentive. Amalgamated gets 0.5%. But they're not issuing the card, they're just branding it. It's issued by First National Bank of Omaha. They get the 1%. First National Bank of Omaha is a large regional bank in Omaha that is fossil free. So I'm just dipping the toe into the alternatives that are out there. Let's go back up here and take a look at a few others. And to do that, we're going to look at the affinity cards. Now, affinity cards are cards that are branded by non-financial institutions. It may be something like a good guy organization like Green America, or it may be, if you looked at the fine print here, we have Sierra Club and a few others. And so they brand their card, and that way when you use the credit card, let's say 0.5% for the brand will go to this do-good organization. It's a way of giving a passive donation. Do any of you have one of those cards from Working Assets or Sierra Club or like that? It's a way, huh?
I used to, but then I realized who was underwriting.
Yeah, okay. So there again, it's a way in which you can give a passive donation to them every year, right? And so you get your 1%, they get their 0.5%. Where does the other 1.5% go? To the issuing bank. Now, in the case of Green America, it goes to TCM. In the case of Sierra Club, it goes to Beneficial. In the case of Working Assets, it goes to Bank of America. So you need to do your research on who is the issuing bank of the branded card. Now again, earlier I gave you the example that I have an amalgamated bank card. That's the branding bank. They get 1%. and then the issuing bank is First National Bank of Omaha. So you want to look around airline clubs. Let's just get on that. Like most of the airlines are using Citi or Chase, right? And the hotels and all that. I had a credit card that was issued American Airlines by Citi, and another card for a hotel group that was issued by Chase. And when I discontinued those two cards, I did not lose the points. The points stay with the club, not with the card. I can't get any more points by using that card because the card's gone, but the points all stayed. So I just want to point that out. When you make your change, don't feel like you're giving up all those points that you accrued in the past. So when you're looking around for the alternatives, we look at TCM Bank. This is a non-brick and mortar bank that exists solely for the purposes of issuing other credit cards. Also, First National Bank of Omaha and Beneficial State Bank are out there issuing cards for other institutions and banks. If you have a credit union that does not issue their own card, you'll see CUNA or PSCU on the back. Now, how do you know whether or not that it's branded or issued? If you turn over the back of your credit card, it will say something like issued by Citibank or issued by TCM. Another way is, where do you pay your bill every month? You don't pay to the branding institution, you pay to the issuing institution. So you know by where you're sending your bill. Every month when I pay my bill, I don't pay Amalgamated, I pay First National Bank of Omaha. So again, to wrap this up, the quickest solution is go find yourself a green bank, if I can call them that, or credit union that issues their own credit card. Problem solved. How easy. And I know Hudson Valley does. Or Mid-Hudson Valley does. And I think Ulster does too. If they don't issue their own card, you want to find out who is. Because if it's Elon Financial is owned by US Bank, you have a fossil fuel bank issuing the card. Find yourself a bank or credit union that issues their own card. If they don't, you want to see this being issued by TCM, First National Bank of Omaha, or Beneficial State Bank. And again, we don't have enough time to go into your individual situations, but you could always give me a call directly, or you can go through those office hours that we talked about. Quick questions? Yeah, 3 of them, okay.
Yes, ESG, what's your perspective on some banks, very large brokerage institutions have really wrestled with investments related to ESG and the evolution of ESG?
Well, every time you get into a Wall Street bank, you're going to have that conflict because they are major investors in climate destruction. So right away, they're not even meeting any of the standards around the E.
Well, I think some of them have really struggled to change that.
Not any of these.
Any of those.
No, the only banks that have done anything that is really respectful is HSBC. And that's very recent. All the other banks, it's pure greenwashing what's going on. They're actually investing more in fossil fuels instead of less. Yes?
So I have an Apple card. It was issued by Apple, but
No, it's branded by Apple.
branded, but on the card, there's nothing on the card, nothing, it's just says Apple and it,
Where do you pay your monthly bill?
oh, it comes out of my account.
Yeah, they'll tell you who issues it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll try to drill down.
Yeah, and let me know, because I'd like to follow up on it. Yes?
On a practical matter, those of us who have been fortunate enough to travel internationally, some of us have gotten like Capital One cards because they're accepted across the world. So if we had an Ulster Bank one where our mortgage and checking account is, would that be accepted if I were going to China?
My own experience is yes. The problem that we have, because they're all part of Visa, they're all part of MasterCard, so they're in that transaction system.
Right.
Sometimes it's the foreign service fee that's there. And really, you just have to do a reality check. If I go on a 3-week trip, I might have access to that ATM 6 times and had to pay $27 in fees.
Yeah.
Okay. But You mentioned Capital One. If you had the list, of the bad guys, Capital One's way down on the bottom. We actually have a ranking system that we use on credit cards. Tier 1s, Tier 2s, Tier 3s, Tier 4s. 4s are really bad. They're a Tier 2. So Capital One is not the bad guy. Now also, American Express and Diner Club, neither of them have any investments in fossil fuels. They're in the finance business. So I hate to say this, American Express is a fossil-free card. Now there's a lot of other reasons that some of us don't use American Express. High transaction fees, high annual fees, and they're just a big bank business, right? I'd much rather have TCM or First National Bank of Omaha or Beneficial Bank issuing my card, or better yet, go find yourself a credit union that has issuing their own card. The reason that everybody doesn't issue their own card is a lot of upfront cost. You have to get the machinery, you have to get the technology, and you have to get the staff. And so they just farm it out as a convenience to us. Again, my bank doesn't even offer a card, so I have to go elsewhere. They just didn't want to spend money on that.
That list that you were talking about, is that on your site of the Tier 1, Tier 2, or where is
It will be. Actually, right now, as we speak, Green America, Green Faith, and myself, we're producing a course. It's a 4-part course that groups like this could actually, you could have your own course where you have 3 sessions, you come in, you do your own research, and you share information, and then you move over to credit cards. And so in the credit card class, those tiers are there. That will eventually end up on the site here. Right now, 3 of us third acts have put it together for our states, and we're just going to do it for the top 10 states.
How does MasterCard relate to it?
MasterCard and Visa are just transaction systems. So they're like American Express is a transaction system also. So it's just a system that's owned by the banks for transitioning the money back and forth.
Back to another question. I'd like to go back to the ESG again. It's certainly a viewpoint of engaging the large companies to get a change of behavior. Not necessarily fighting them, but engaging them. What do you feel through that?
Well,
Cause from your point of view?
well, no, Third Act, you might want to find out more about it. I'm the statewide facilitator for Third Act Upstate New York. Its sole existence is about what you're talking about, putting influence onto the major banks and the major commercials to stop funding the money pipeline and giving them incentives. And so right now our target is Citibank, TD Bank, and Costco.
Can you give us some examples and sort of, you feel it's getting some traction now?
Barely. But I hate to say that. We got like 15 minutes. Are we going to run a little bit late? Yeah. So I really need to get through the rest of the material here because we did start 15 minutes late on a 1-hour workshop that takes 90 minutes. Yeah. So let me one last question here. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that we could call you. Do you have a card or will you give me your phone number?
Yeah. I'll give it. Just write down rivers.mountains. So just like rivers-mountains-green faith. This is rivers.mountains at iCloud. iCloud.
But Rivers Mountains, what's the third?
Yeah, but rivers.mountains at iCloud.
At iCloud?
Yeah, that's Apple.
We can get that to
Yeah.
anybody who
We'll send all
needs
this
this
out
information.
afterwards.
Let's listen and follow up on that.
On the home and auto insurance, I'm only going to spend 5 minutes here because I do want to touch on retirement because we actually talked about actually doing a whole workshop just on retirement. Maybe we still do. What we're doing more and more these days because of this, I again apologize for the late start on the technical side. We spend 1 hour on banks, credit cards, and insurance. That normally only takes 45 minutes, so we have lots of question time. And then we come back 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks later, and we have a whole hour just on investments. And that usually takes that whole hour, and then some. But on the home and auto insurance, I want to touch on this because this is an easy fix also. When we have our home and auto premium payments, the way I always thought it worked is I paid my premium, Kathy paid her premium, and then when you had an accident, or the risk pool paid for your claim. And that is how it works. But these insurance companies that are huge and have millions of people that are paying premiums, that money just doesn't sit in the vault waiting to pay your claim. What do they do with it? And whose money is it? It's theirs. It's not like the bank. And so we find that the major insurance companies are disproportionately not only insuring fossil fuel, but investing in fossil fuel projects. In fact, Liberty Mutual, if it was a bank, it would rank number 5 as investors, underwriters of fossil fuel projects. Now, real quickly, I don't want to talk a whole lot about the problem, but here's the problem. When a fossil fuel company wants to do a project, they want to build a pipeline, they want to build a refinery, they want to dig a coal mine, they want to transport some oil in a tanker, they need to go out and raise capital. They don't want to use their working capital like Mr. Peabody, because their working capital is used for other things. When they have a capital project, they finance it. And they finance it for reasons. They can write it off on their taxes and things like that. So they go out looking to the money market for money. And where do they go? They go to the banks for loans and underwriting. They go to investors for investments, but then you're partial owner. And they go to governments for subsidies. The banks, the investors, and that's private and public, as well as sovereign equity, and the governments on subsidies won't give them any money unless they have insurance on the project. Think when something goes wrong with fossil fuel, it goes wrong in a really big way. BP oil platform, Exxon, the list is long. So what a great business to be in. There's an entire fossil fuel industry out there that cannot dig, produce, or transport without insurance. What do insurance companies do? Now, Wall Street banks exist for the purposes, blah, blah. What insurance companies? They insure things. They'll insure anything. They'll insure everything. I always thought that insurance companies were adverse to risk. They actually love risk. Because the higher the risk, the higher the premium, and if your actuaries are any good, the higher the profits. They love the oil industry. And they disproportionately are out there doing business with them. They love them so much that all those premiums that are sitting around, some of them from the oil industry, right? Because if you're the major insurer of an oil company, where are your premiums coming? They turn around and they take all this money that's sitting around and they invest it right back in them, right? And they do it in an incredibly disproportionate way. The best place to read about it is here on the Rainforest Action Network website. There's no better site than Insure Our Future. That says it all. All right, so I don't want to do anything with the Wall Street banks. What do? I walk down the street to my community bank and I open up my account. How easy is that? I just leave the big guys and go to the small guy. Same thing here. But it's not so easy as walking down the street. Because in New York State, most of our insurance is coming through an insurance broker. You go to Nagarati, or you go to some other local insurance agent, and you would get your insurance. And they have a long list. They have Allstate, Nationwide. State Farm is only at State Farm, whatever like that. But you have to go to a broker. There are a few companies out there like Amica Mutual out of Rhode Island, very good company. Well, Geico, right here on the list, 15 minutes or less. But Geico is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, also known as Warren Buffett. The #1 investor and insurer in tar sand projects. So that lizard is covered with oil. And you can go through here like farmers, that nice little farmer guy that comes out there and talks the simple talk. That's owned by Zurich. Now Zurich is actually one of those companies that's going in the right direction, but they're doing it way too slow. But yeah, even Flo at Progressive, she's got oil on her apron. Well, MetLife is now owned by Farmers, who is owned by Zurich. But somebody mentioned State Farm. State Farm actually is one of the worst. It would be ranked #3. State Farm was the largest insurance company in California, the largest. They announced this year that they will no longer insure new policies in California. Why?
Fire.
What's causing the fire? Who are they investing in? Huh?
But they're charging more well, they're not gonna charge more per unit because they're not even gonna insure.
Right, the actuaries blew it and they had to pull out. So it's like, here you have State Farm, one of the major investors and insurers of fossil fuel projects that's causing climate destruction, cancels insurance plans, actually it won't write new ones, they're soon going to be canceling, not rewriting policies, because the climate change made the risk too high. And you'd think that that would be enough that they would look themselves in the mirror and say, I got to stop doing this. The cartoon is like the person in the mirror with the lipstick, stop me before I kill again. That's where they're at.
This may be a sequitur, non sequitur, but close to home. Yeah. Warren Buffett, Peter Buffett's son, is the Novo Foundation, which has invested heavily in Kingston.
Yeah.
So any project that's accepting Novo money is probably accepting tainted money.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of discussion there in the environmental community because of that. Yeah, thanks.
And they're doing farming projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Sticky.
It is. We can talk about that a little bit further. On this thing, what to do. I had traveler's insurance. My partner Joanne, who owns our house, had Allstate. We, just like, I always had a good bank. I always did community bank, but I had Citi and Chase. I now have amalgamated with First National Bank of Omaha. I had Travelers and Joanne at Allstate. We went down to our insurance agent and we said, listen, first of all, I want you to shop the plan that I have now, that old apples to apples thing, right? And tell me who else can write me and save me money or whatever it costs. And actually, combined, we saved 22% on the exact same coverage. Now, once you do that, you want to ask your broker, am I overinsured or underinsured, and get it right. But don't do that up front. Shop your comparison. And so I ended up going with, down here there's just 4 examples, and we're developing a full directory on that right now too through Green America. We've just hired an intern at Green America, and I'm their mentor we're going to come up with a list of the 10 states. But I have Utica Mutual, and Joanne went with NYCM, New York Central Mutual, and we saved 22% on the exact same coverage. And also, you, of course, want to make certain that they pay their claims, and they don't hassle you, good customer service. Trust your broker on that. Do your own research. I mentioned Amica a little bit earlier that you can get online. Take a look at Amica. They have JP Power Associates #1 customer rating. Take a look at them. They're good. Get a quote for them. Even if you go to your broker, get a quote from them. But anyhow, I highly recommend here that you talk to Nagaroti. I know for a fact that he gets his insurance through NYCM because he told me so. Now he's got all those other people too, but you could go see him. Do I say the name right? Nagaroti Insurance, right here in Kingston. Huh? I'd have to look it up. Naga Roti. I know he's got one office right over here by. Yeah, the malls, over in the mall area. I can get back to you here as we wrap up this 1 hour. But go to your local insurance agent and tell them simply this. I don't want any of the big commercials. I want you to shop me a regional mutual. Now, mutual in the insurance business is a term. It means that the premium holders own the company. It's not a privately held or publicly traded company. It's a mutual. And so you would go in there and say, I want a mutual, like New York Central Mutual, Utica Mutual, those. Now, one side comment here about mutuals. The dirtiest insurance company out there is Liberty Mutual, that ENU. Now, figure this one out. Who owns the mutual? The premium payers. If they're the number one insurer of fossil fuel, who are the majority of their premium paper? So can you imagine going to a Liberty Mutual board of directors meeting and say, I want to decarbonize, I want to divest from fossil fuels? The resolution doesn't get the light of day. Right? So mutuals are good unless you are an insurance company. Most mutuals started like co-ops. Amica that I mentioned, it was 2 fire districts in Rhode Island that got together for homeowners insurance. That's how they started. So it's mutuals coming together, people in the community saying, hey, you pay a premium, you pay a premium, you pay a premium, and when you have a claim, we'll pay your claim. That was the mutual coming together. That was its beginning. And credit unions work the same way. Let's get away from having those big daddy warbucks taking all of our money. Let's all put our money in our own little bank, our own little credit union. So those were the good ideas.
How safe are these things?
Well, you want to make certain that you do your research on it. And first of all, a broker is going to give you is not going to give you a bum. You're going to get somebody who pays the claim. They're not going to set you up with a shadowy company.
So the ones you have listed on the bottom there?
Those are all very good ones. But again, there's others like, don't walk away from Vermont Mutual. It's really good if you're downstate, and you can pick up New Jersey manufacturers and JM. There's many, many good mutuals out there, but you just need to do your research. And also you can call me and we can review that. Now, we don't have time to go into this last one, but I just want to touch what it's all about. Here is where the big bucks are. The bank, the credit card, the insurance. These are little things that we can do so we can feel, first of all, better about ourselves. And we also, in the aggregate, it does all add up. And as we move away from the big bad guys that are only greenwashing ESG, and we go over to the small people that they don't even have to talk about it. They're ESG by their very nature. It's their essence. We're making a change. But where the big bucks are, and this is where we come in at Third Act, as well as at Rivers and Mountains, is we're going after the endowments, the pensions, and the investments that are being held by seniors. It ain't me, but most financial advisors say if you don't have $500,000 in retirement by the time you get to retire, you're not going to have enough. Well, guess what? I don't have enough. But anyhow, if you look at what's average out there, it's a lot of money. And if we can start moving that money, again, the focus is not to divest. The focus is to invest. Because if we just go out and divest our portfolios and our endowments and our pensions, there's plenty of other hungry investors out there. Private equity and sovereign equity. China will run in and buy it up. Arab oil will buy it up. It gets bought up. We want to see the money that we're currently using to fund climate destruction go to funding the green economy and environmental justice. Otherwise, building up the inner city communities, building up jobs, creating more opportunity in our communities. So to do that, the major obstacle is finding the financial advisor to help us. How many of us use financial advisors? Now, I know enough about this that I probably could get by not using a financial advisor, but I'm lazy. I want to just preface something before I go too much further. I can stand up here and tell you what bank to go to, what credit card to get, and what insurance company to go talk to. With investments, I can't. I'm not a financial advisor. So all I'm going to be telling you is you need to find yourself a financial advisor that at least cares about what you're saying. There's a lot of financial advisors out there that are going to be lazy, and they're going to tell you, well, I have a fiduciary responsibility to make certain that you have a diverse investment account. And yeah, it includes fossil fuels and all this kind of. But one thing that's really bad about that whole statement is they say fiduciary responsibility and they put a period there. Well, I have a big eraser where I take that period out and I write in that the fiduciary responsibility makes certain that I have an economy that I can invest in 10 years from now. And if we continue towards the tipping points that we're going to, we're not going to have an economy to have a retirement to draw from. You know the word stranded assets. Now, if I know that I have a stranded assets, and I'm talking to our very good controller, Tom DiNapoli here, who I really like. DiNapoli has done a really good job of divesting at a front line, but he hasn't gone the distance yet, and we're putting pressure on him right now to get out of Exxon altogether. He's got further to go. But if I have a stranded asset and I continue to put more money into it, that's just plain stupid. I should be taking those stranded assets and divesting them, getting out of there, taking my money and running, and we're a better place to run than the green industries, because they're exploding out there. They're so hungry for money, and they're having great rates of return. So we need to go find ourselves financial advisors that move our portfolios away from these stranded assets and gets us over into the green assets. The number one obstruction to making the change is the financial advisor. Now, also, a lot of them, the financial advisor is just there as a person to facilitate. They're not the asset manager. They don't own the funds. They aren't the businesses. They're just there to kind of guide and help you, and they take 1% of all the money that's coming through. And so you want to make certain that you have a financial advisor that has access to financial products that have these green alternatives. And so you can go to some, and maybe I know the Bank of Greene County uses Infinex. They have a good portfolio. A lot of financial advisors in the green, they use Commonwealth. They have an excellent portfolio. But you want to get out there to know that your financial advisor, first of all, cares about what you're saying. It'd be nice if they believed what you're saying. And then also that they have services they can offer you. Because you might go to somebody and they say, well, fiduciary responsibility, we have these products over here. The thing is, he doesn't even have the opportunity to do business with you because he's not set up for it. Well, they're also, you can go to a lot of your financial institutions. I just mentioned Bank of Greene County that has financial services through Infinex. I'll be personal. My daughter had a small amount of money that was with that financial services, and they had it all in America funds. America funds are some of the dirtiest funds out there. Again, if we had time, I would show you the As You Sow where you can look up your funds. And I said, well, Megan, you need to go talk to this guy. And so she did, and she got the story. And I said, Megan, you need to go talk to some other guy. So she moved. And again, you may want to, if the demand's here, I would gladly come back and do a whole workshop just on this, and we'll talk ESG for at least 10 minutes. But right now it's 10 after the hour, and I know people want to go.